For 42 years, Betty Driver was the heartbeat of Coronation Street. She made her first appearance in 1969 and her last in May of this year at the tender age of 91.
Is Becky with Max?
Look, do you want me to go and fetch her?
No, it's all right. I'll just come through.
Where do you think you're going? David! What? Hey, where are you going and all?
Betty was a much-loved entertainer for whom the words national treasure could have been invented. And don't forget, this is a woman who had already had an amazing career in entertainment before she came to Coronation Street. Millions of us were enthralled by Betty Driver's life story, which was shown on ITV earlier this year. And I hope you'll enjoy another look back over a career that spanned an amazing 80 years. Betty, life on and off the street won't be the same without you.
No, it cannot be.
Oh, that's it. It's funny, isn't it? But after a while, you know, it doesn't seem real. You think that if you just reached out to touch it, it'd disappear.
Flipping know it would.
Betty Driver was born in Leicester on the 20th of May, 1920. Coming into the world weighing 12 pounds, she was the first of two daughters for Frederick and Nell Driver.
When I was 2.5, my father joined the police force in Manchester, and we moved up to Manchester. We had a nice home life when we were little, but it changed because my mother was so ambitious.
Desperate to be on the stage herself, Betty's mother was determined to make her daughter a star, meaning Betty's earliest memories would be of the theatre.
So my mother pushed me. She said, go on, get on the stage. I said, I'm not going over there. No, get on that stage. Threatened me if I didn't go on the stage. We get up onto the stage and this fella said, you're very, very good, aren't you? I said, oh, yes, confidence oozing. He said, well, would you like to sing the song again? I said, yes, I would, yes. And it was from there that Mother got the idea, there's a shilling or two to be made out of this one.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our North Country...
Seemingly a born performer, Betty was just 11 when she made her stage debut in a variety matinee at the Manchester Hippodrome.
And I was lucky, being young, a vivacious personality, and the audiences loved it. And I loved it, and that was it.
But the fame her mother craved didn't come easily, and Betty spent the next 3 years performing in theatres up and down the country.
I always felt lonely on the stage. Well, you do. You see, you go onto the stage by yourself, just with the pit band, and if you don't capture the audience within 2 minutes, you might as well come off.
Mother kept her working too much, kept her too close an eye on her, and made her life pretty miserable, really.
Now, that's enough. Let's hear more about it. It wouldn't, Mum. Besides, I want to go in for the crooning competition. I know I could win it.
She was very, very strict. I mean, if I didn't do something right, she'd smack across the face or hit me hands or whatever, you know, but she was very, very difficult, really.
Sometimes they would do 4 or 5 shows a day. And that's just, when you think of it now, it must have been incredibly hard.
I would have done much better if she'd have been soft with me and sometimes put her arms round me and said, you're good. But she never did.
I'm fed up with it all. Shh. Oh, and I'm sick of being shushed.
Too scared to disobey her mother, Betty's whole life revolved around being on stage. Soon she became an unhappy child, relying on her younger sister and only sibling, Freda, for support.
Freda had more guts than I had. She was 2.5 years younger than me, but she dare stand up to my mother. I daren't.
Freda was absolutely her star for life. I mean, she really looked after her completely. She relied on her for everything.
Freda was very different to Betty. She was much quieter, much more reserved, hugely observant, but above all else, hugely protective of Betty.
With Freda by her side, Betty somehow found the strength to carry on performing. And by 1934, her big break was just around the corner, or so she thought.
George Formby and his wife Beryl came to see one of the plays one afternoon and came round backstage and said, "You're a clever little girl, aren't you?" I said, "Oh, yes." "Oh, yes, you know, very posh." "Oh, yes, of course I am, yes." "Would you like to make a film?"
Now behold in me an LDV, for battle I'm just yearning.
With his toothy grin and ukulele, in the 1930s, George Formby was hot property in the entertainment industry. And he was about to embark on a film career, playing a butler in Boots, Boots.
And what are you laughing at? You did look funny on there. Now I will tell you a story.
And after spotting Betty on stage, Formby signed her up to star alongside him.
And I filmed my bit, and of course all the crew all cheered and said, "Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful." And a voice from the back shouted, "Hang on, either that kid goes or I do."
Worried about being upstaged by a younger Betty, it's said Formby's wife Beryl demanded that she be cut out of the final film.
Cried all the way home on the train. I thought, what a damn shame. But never mind, it was experience, that's all.
It looked like Betty's career in the movies was over before it had even begun. But in 1938, as Vivien Leigh started work on Gone with the Wind, and Ginger Rogers danced up a storm with the musical Carefree, 17-year-old Betty got a call from famous film producer Basil Dean.
He said, "Would you like to do a bit of filming?" I said, "Yes, I would, I'd love it." "Oh, yeah, please." So he said, "Right, well, we'll put you under contract." I got 3 films, and I was, going to be the next Betty Davis. Wonderful, you know.
Betty! Hello, Dad. See, you got your Boy Scout with you. Come on, take one of these, quick.
Betty was still only a teenager when she was given a film contract, and she was really excited. I mean, this is like the equivalent of going to Hollywood as far as she was concerned.
Penny Paradise would be directed by Carol Reed, who went on to make his name with films like The Third Man and Oliver. And he chose Betty to play his leading lady.
Time and time again, all the greatest men prove my words to be true.
Over 70 years later, Betty still remembers her magical time on set.
And I had my 18th birthday there, and they filled my dressing room to the roof with flowers.
And that's really when her star started to really rise, and people stood up and noticed, saying, "Who is this amazing singer?"
How could I foretell that would bowl me over?
Penny Paradise was a triumph and was quickly followed a year later by Betty's bill-topping performance in Let's Be Famous.
Walking down the street, just in time to meet me. I never thought when
I really loved making films. That's why I love television. I think if you like television and films and you can be natural, that's it.
the moon remembered, but you forgot.
September 1939. Betty had just finished her second film, Let's Be Famous,
Encore, encore.
Oh, you were terrific.
You were great.
You were marvellous.
and was about to start on a third. But Britain was preparing for war. Soon, film studios would be converted into government storage depots, and a visit from producer Basil Dean signalled the premature end of Betty's big screen career.
And he said, "We're going to have to change studios." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, there's war is on the brink, so we're going to Elstree."
Is this right for London?
On the left.
And then war was declared. All contracts then were cancelled. So bang, gone my film career.
Now aged 19, Betty was forced back into doing what she knew best, performing in variety shows across the country, accompanied by her devoted sister and ever-present mother, when another offer came along.
I wasn't working 1 week, and my agent phoned through and said, there's a dance band, the lead singer is off ill. Would you like to go and take her place? I said, well, yes, if you like, yes.
Henry Hall conducted the BBC's resident band. He had his own radio show and a huge following with millions tuning to listen in every week. Now Betty was to be the star turn at the end of each programme.
Suddenly she was going into nearly everybody's living room once a week because everyone loved Henry Hall and they would listen in, and she became a huge household name.
Oh, the red maple leaves were falling on the day I found...
I think that was the best experience in terms of work, really, because he was, you know, he was a great sort of father figure.
Like the red maple leaves.
And when I first heard just those words her sing, what a haunting, beautiful voice.
What was Betty Driver? Radio, variety, and records. You don't get bigger than that.
I'll take romance.
In 1941, Betty turned 21, and for the first time in her life took charge of her own earnings. She continued to sing with Henry Hall and his band throughout the war, touring Europe to boost morale amongst the forces.
Where she just wanted to go and entertain the troops and the wounded, whether it was, you know, in field hospitals, whether it was on battlegrounds. She just felt that if they were doing it, it was her job to do it too, to get up there and sing and do her bit.
We had to wear uniform as well. I was a captain, naturally, which was rather nice. Henry Hall, I think he was a colonel. We all looked rather nice, you know.
She went out to some really dangerous places and she entertained the troops. She did everything that Vera Lynn did.
One performance Betty would never forget came towards the end of the war, when her band was stationed at a delousing camp in Germany.
She said, you know this now, come on, sing with me. And eventually they'd sing, but there was nothing on these little dead faces. Well, I couldn't stand it. I said to Henry, I'm going in the audience, I can't stand this. And I went to one young boy, that's about 19 or 20. I sat on his knee. He started to cry. I hadn't started singing yet. I said, oh, don't cry. Just think about your mum. In a few weeks' time, you're going home. By the time the show finished, they were all smiling. And to me, that's the greatest achievement of my whole life.
By the end of the war, just about everyone in Britain had heard of Betty Driver. So no surprise that in 1952, she was given her own TV programme. The Betty Driver show was a massive success. And as audiences continued their love affair with Betty, she was starting a romance of her own.
Here am I telling you, you're the nicest girl I've ever met.
Well, I believe that.
And the only girl I've ever loved.
And I believe that too.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wally Peterson was a South African singer who had appeared on one of Betty's radio shows, and their love affair was to change her life forever.
Wally was a very attractive man. She wanted to be with someone, she wanted to be married, she wanted to be happy, like most of us.
After a short courtship, Betty and Wally were married in London in December 1953.
In August or September, in October and
She did fall in love with him, there's no doubt about that, and he was quite an attractive man, but he was also a bit of a villain.
It was not a happy marriage. Her husband carted her off to South Africa and God knows where, and she was very unhappy.
And eventually, came home one night and he said, I'm in love. I said, really? Who is it? Next morning I get on the phone to Freda. I said, will you send me some money for my fare? I haven't got a penny left.
Freda never approved of Wally, feeling he was only interested in Betty's bank account. And by the time Betty ended the relationship, Wally had spent almost everything she had.
The marriage certainly didn't work, and it was a very bad time for Betty because she was absolutely heartbroken about the whole thing.
Betty's return to England in 1960 was far from glorious. After 7 years of marriage, she was back home, but broke.
In the late 50s, early 60s, Betty's voice started to go, and she couldn't sing like she had done in the past. So she focused more on acting, which is something that she was really interested in anyway.
With her life as a professional singer behind her, television acting offered Betty the chance of a whole new career.
Oh, come on, Sally, lass, it's only a bit of fun, and it costs now.
She played the role of Mrs. Blood in the gritty social drama Love on the Dole.
I've my time to do over again. Shouldn't turn my nose up at the fat belly, as long as it's got a gold watch chain hanging on it.
And starred in a sitcom called Pardon the Expression, a Coronation Street spin-off in which Arthur Lowe continued his role of Leonard Swindley.
Well, the kitchen's ship-shape and Bristol fashion.
Please, Mrs. Edgley, no naval terminology. My seafaring days are over.
By the late 60s, and after working for 40 years, a back injury forced Betty into early retirement. Betty was running a pub in Derbyshire with her sister Freda, when she was offered a job behind the bar of the most famous pub in the land.
One day I got a phone call from Granada saying, can I come round and see you? I said, don't be daft, it's a pub. Yes, come round and have a few drinks with us. He came round and he said, why don't you come and pull some pints in the Rovers? I said, well, I'm working here. Yes, he said, you can do the two.
And below me down, of course, a few days later, they rang and said, well, they'd like to take her on for a couple of episodes to try something out, and she was very thrilled.
When I said, what's my character name? He said, well, what do you want? I said, oh, I don't want to be called Florrie or Ada. I said, can't I have my own name? Yes, of course you can. So that was wonderful.
So this is your famous corner shop.
It makes a nice little living.
I can see that, Pet. Oh, and the way you've got...
Betty was 48 when she filmed her first scene on Coronation Street, but it didn't come in the Rovers. Instead, it was in the corner shop, run by her on-screen sister, Maggie.
Hey, do you remember what our mum used to call you? Methodical Mag.
Yeah, I remember what she used to call you and all.
Yeah, well, I'm none of that. What do you make of that?
This wasn't the first time Coronation Street had come calling. 7 years earlier, and before Betty injured her back, she'd auditioned for the part of Hilda Ogden.
That took a long time, didn't it?
Well, he said, we're thinking of having a new character. I said, well, what is it? He said, well, she's a cleaner. I said, I don't do cleaning.
Dirty man, she said I'd got. Dirty man, and you just sat there and let her.
I ought to clip you right round the chops.
Oh, I wondered when we get round to that.
And she got down to the final two, and you know, it could have been very, very funny. Rather than Jean Alexander playing Hilda Ogden, it could have been Betty Driver.
As Betty Turpin, Betty Driver joined a long line of no-nonsense women to inhabit Coronation Street.
Oh, yes. Tomorrow I am going to my solicitor and I am suing you for defamation of character. So, Mrs. Walker, you can put your best sherry where the monkey puts his nuts. Now, do I make myself clear? But I loved it in the olden days because you talked more. There's more action now. You know, I mean, we would do scenes in the Rovers of me, Bet and Doris Speed with a cup of coffee each before we opened the pub, talking about absolute rubbish, but it was something, and it was what people do.
He distinctly said there he'd be calling back later to see if you had returned.
Oh, might wish you hadn't when you find out who he is, eh?
I mightn't.
What she did do was bring her wonderful personality onto the screen. And who needs anything else but Betty on the screen?
Hi, Dorrit, you're fawned and preened like a big soft dog.
You look marvellous when you're jealous, Betty.
You won't look so marvellous with the thick ear.
Betty's always been a constant force to be reckoned with.
I wouldn't touch your money with the barge pole.
Well, I would. I'm two knicker down already.
Oh, shut up.
Betty Driver and Julie Goodyear were to become the best of friends, both on screen and off, as they became the nation's favourite barmaids.
Come on, sit yourself down. We were excellent together, Julie and I. She knew when I was nervous, and I knew when she was. She was brilliant.
Does eyeshadow make me look like a painted doll?
I used to know what Betty was thinking, and she would know instinctively what I was thinking. That could work against us sometime and give us the giggles.
You gotta laugh, haven't you?
It looks pretty funny from where I'm standing and all.
There's no need to get nasty.
We had nothing but laughter. We nearly got the sack several times for laughing.
Fred, we're moving!
Put the handbrake on!
I've got it!
The handbrake! Pull it up! Pull it harder!
They had to film in the lake for 6 hours. And at one point, everyone went for lunch and just left them in the middle of the lake.
We'll just have to get his feet wet.
Oh, no, Betty. Not on your life.
I think together they were a terrific team because they weren't trying to be funny, they were just being wonderful characters.
It's like I told you before. As of right now, we are out of the hot food business, so you know what that means.
What are you trying to say, Alec? Are you saying I'm sacked?
Please don't go
Listen,
like this.
I am not stopping here 1 minute longer where I'm not wanted.
In all those years working together, we never once truly had one cross word. I don't know how many actors or actresses could say that.
Lay one finger on me and I won't be responsible for my actions. Ladies, ladies. Look, search me. I just stand here and serve drinks. I knew you weren't listening. Bacon.
If I were 20 years younger, I wouldn't fancy his chances on the back row.
Hello, everyone. This is Henry Hall speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Betty Driver. Something tells me you're not taking me seriously.
Yes, I am. Look, I'm not laughing.
Betty, I've been looking all over for you.
Do you want to take me out tomorrow, Bert?
Of course I do.
That's right, Betty. Give us a song.
Come on, Betty,
Sing.
I want to die working. Oh, yes. But you know, I've travelled all over the world. I've been top of the bill all my life since 14. I've always been a leading lady. I've never played second fiddle to anybody. And now it's that bloody hot pot. It's top of the bill, not me. I can chuck it through the window. Right, who's for hot pot?
Right, girls, come on, we're out of here.
What, all of us?
All of us.